Passive Reconnaissance. Learn about the essential tools for passive reconnaissance, such as WHOIS, nslookup, and dig. Easy. 60 mins. 405,447. Welcome to the first room of the Network Security module. This module covers 1. Passive Reconnaissance. 2. Active Reconnaissance. 3. Live Host Discovery. 4. Basic Port Scans. 5. Advanced Port Scans. 6. Post-Port Scans. 107. Protocols and Servers. 8. Protocols and Servers 2. 9. Network Security Challenge. In this room, after we define passive reconnaissance and active reconnaissance, we focus on essential tools related to passive reconnaissance. We will learn 3 command line tools. 1. WHOIS to query WHOIS servers. 2. nslookup to query DNS servers. 3. Dig to query servers. We use WHOIS to query WHOIS records, while we use nslookup and dig to query database records. These are all publicly available records and hence do not alert the target. We will also learn the usage of 2 online services. 1. DNS Dumpster. 2. Shodan.io. These 2 online services allow us to collect information about our target without directly connecting to it. Prerequisites. This room requires basic networking knowledge along with basic familiarity with the command line. The module's network fundamentals and fundamentals provide the required knowledge, if necessary. Important notice, please note that if you're not subscribed, the attack box won't have internet access, so you will need to use the to complete the questions that require internet access. This room does not use a target virtual machine, VM, to demonstrate the discussed topics. Instead, we will query public WHOIS servers and DNS servers for domains owned by TryHackMe. Start the attack box and make sure it is ready. You will use the attack box to answer the questions in later tasks, especially tasks 3 and 4. Passive Reconnaissance. This room expects the user to have a working knowledge of computer networks. If you like to brush up on this topic, you are encouraged to study the network fundamentals first. Before the dawn of computer systems and networks in the art of war, Sun Tzu taught, if you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you are playing the role of an attacker, you need to gather information about your target systems. If you are playing the role of a defender, you need to know what your adversary will discover about your systems and networks. Reconnaissance, recon, can be defined as a preliminary survey to gather information about a target. It is the first step in the unified kill chain. It opens in a new tab. To gain an initial foothold, a system, we divide reconnaissance into 1. Passive reconnaissance. 2. Active reconnaissance. In passive reconnaissance, you rely on publicly available knowledge. It is the knowledge that you can access from publicly available resources without directly engaging with the target. Think of it like you are looking at target territory from afar without stepping foot on that territory. Passive reconnaissance activities include many activities, for instance. 1. Looking up records of a domain from a public server. 2. Checking job ads related to the target website. 3. Reading news articles about the target company. Active reconnaissance, on the other hand, cannot be achieved so discreetly. It requires direct engagement with the target. Think of it like you check the locks on the doors and windows, among other potential entry points. Examples of active reconnaissance activities include 1. Connecting one of the company's servers such as, and 2. Calling the company in an attempt to get information. 3. Entering company premises pretending to be a repairman. Considering the invasive nature of active reconnaissance, one can quickly get into legal trouble unless one obtains proper legal authorization. You visit the Facebook page of the target company, hoping to get some of their employee names. What kind of reconnaissance activity is this? F for active, P for passive. You ping the IP address of the company web server to check if ICMP traffic is blocked. What kind of reconnaissance activity is this? F for active, P for passive. You happen to meet the IT administrator of the target company at a party. You try to use social engineering to get more information about their systems and network infrastructure. What kind of reconnaissance activity is this? F for active, P for passive. Your streak increased. You're closer to your next badge of 30 days. Keep up the amazing work. Your machine is initialized. Passive Reconnaissance. WHOIS is a request and response protocol that follows the 3912. Opens in new tab. Specification. A WHOIS server listens on port 43 for incoming requests. The domain registrar is responsible for maintaining the WHOIS records for the domain names it is leasing. The WHOIS server replies with various information related to the domain requested. Of particular interest, we can learn 1. Registrar, via which registrar was the domain name registered. 2. Contact info of registrant, name, organization, address, phone, among other things, unless made hidden via a privacy service. 3. Creation, update, and expiration dates. When was the domain name first registered? When was it updated? And when does it need to be renewed? 4. Name server. Which server to ask to resolve the domain name? To get this information, we need to use a WHOIS client or an online service. Many online services provide WHOIS information. However, it is generally faster and more convenient to use your local WHOIS client. Using the attack box, or your local Linux machine, such as Parrot or Kali, you can easily access your WHOIS client on the terminal. The syntax is WHOIS domain name, where domain name is the domain about which you are trying to get more information. Consider the following example, executing whois-tryhackme.com. User at tryhackme whois-tryhackme.com. Querying whois.verisignjaras.com. Redirected to whois.namakeep.com. Querying whois.namakeep.com. whois.namakeep.com. Domain name, tryhackme.com. Registry domain ID, 228273394, domain com VRSN. Registrar WHOIS server, whois.namakeep.com. Registrar URL, HTTP URL. Updated date, 2021, May 1st to 1943 31Z. Creation date, 2018 to 07 5th 1946 15 on Z. We can see plenty of information. We will inspect them in the order displayed. First, we notice that we were redirected to whois.namakeep.com to get our information. In this case, and at the time being, namakeep.com is maintaining the WHOIS record for this domain name. Furthermore, we can see the creation date along with the last update date and expiration date. Next, we obtain information about the registrar and the registrant. We can find the registrant's name and contact information unless they are using some privacy service. Although not displayed above, we get the admin and tech contacts for this domain. Finally, we see the domain name servers that we should query if we have any DNS records to look up. The information collected can be inspected to find new attack surfaces, such as social engineering or technical attacks. For instance, depending on the scope of the penetration test, you might consider an attack against the email server of the admin user or the DNS servers, assuming they are owned by your client and fall within the scope of the penetration test. It is important to note that due to automated tools abusing WHOIS queries to harvest email addresses, many WHOIS services take measures against this. They might redact email addresses, for instance. Moreover, many registrants subscribe to privacy services to avoid their email addresses being harvested by spammers and keep their information private. On the attack box, open the terminal and run the whois-tryhackme.com command to get the information you need to answer the following questions. Which company is tryhackme.com using Passive Reconnaissance? In the previous task, we used the WHOIS protocol to get various information about the domain name we were looking up. In particular, we were able to get the servers from the registrar. Find the IP address of a domain name using nslookup, which stands for name server lookup. You need to issue the command nslookup domain name, for example, nslookup tryhackme.com. Or, more generally, you can use nslookup options domain name server. These three main parameters are: 1. Options contains the query type as shown in the table below. For instance, you can use A for IPv4 addresses and AAA for IPv6 addresses. 2. Domain name is the domain name you are looking up. 3. Server is the DNS server that you want to query. You can choose any local or public DNS server to query. Cloudflare offers 1.1.1 and 1.1.1.1. Google offers 8.8.8 and 8.4.4. And Quine offers 9.9.99 and 149.1.2.112.112. There are many more public DNS servers. It opens in a new tab that you can choose from if you want alternatives to your ISP's DNS servers. Query, result. AIP4 S's. AAA IPv6 addresses. SNAME, canonical name. AX, mail servers. SOI, of authority. TXT records. For instance, nslookup, type A tryhackme.com 1.1.1, or nslookup, type A tryhackme.com 1.1.1, as it is case insensitive, can be used to return all the IPv4 addresses used by tryhackme.com. Terminal. User at tryhackme nslookup, type A tryhackme.com 1.11.1. 1.11.1. 1.11.1, 53. Non-authoritative. The A and AAA records are used to return IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, respectively. This lookup is helpful to know from a penetration testing perspective. In the example above, we started with one domain name, and we obtained 3 IPv4 addresses. Each of these IP addresses can be further checked for insecurities, assuming they lie within the scope of the penetration test. Let's say you want to learn about the email servers and configurations for a particular domain. You can issue nslookup, type mx-tryhackme.com. Here is an example. Terminal. User at tryhackme nslookup, type mx-tryhackme.com. Server, 127.0.53. Address, 127.00.53, 53. Non-authoritative answer. Tryhackme.com mail exchanger A5 alt1.spx.google.com. Tryhackme.com mail exchanger A1SPS.google.com. Tryhackme.com mail exchanger 10 alt4 spx.google.com. Tryhackme.com mail exchanger A10 alt3 spmx.google.com. Tryhackme.com mail exchanger A5 alt2 spmx.google.com. We can see that tryhackme.com's current email configuration uses Google. Since MX is looking up the mail exchange servers, we notice that when a mail server tries to deliver email at tryhackme.com, it will try to connect to the aspnext.google.com, which has order 1. If it is busy or unavailable, the mail server will attempt to connect to the next in order mail exchange servers alt1.aspnext.google.com or alt2.ask.google.com. Google provides the listed mail servers, therefore, we should not expect the mail servers to be running a vulnerable server version. However, in other cases, we might find mail servers that are not adequately secured or patched. Such pieces of information might prove valuable as you continue the passive reconnaissance of your target. You can repeat similar queries for other domain names and try different types, such as type text. Who knows what kind of information you might discover along your way. For more advanced DNS queries and additional functionality, you can use DIG, the acronym for A Domain Information Groper, if you are curious. Let's use DIG to look up the MX records and compare them to nslookup. We can use DIG domain name, but to specify the record type, we would use DIG domain name type E. Optionally, we can select the server we want to query using DIG at server domain name type E. 1. Server is the DNS server that you want to query. 2. Domain name is the domain name you are looking up. 3. TTIP contains the DNS record type, as shown in the table provided earlier. Terminal. User at tryhackme, DIG tryhack. A quick comparison between the output of nslookup and DIG shows that DIG returned more information, such as the TTL, time to live, by default. If you want to query a 1.1.1 DNS server, you can execute DIG 1.1.1.1 tryhackme.com MX. Using the attack box, open the terminal and use the nslookup or DIG command to get the information you need to answer the following question. Check the TXT records of themlabs.com. What is flag there? Passive lookup tools, such as nslookup and dig, cannot find subdomains on their own. The domain you are inspecting might include a different subdomain that can reveal much information about the target. For instance, if tryhackme.com has the subdomains wiki@tryhackme.com and webmail.tryhackme.com, you want to learn more about these two as they can hold a trove of information about your target. There is a possibility that one of these subdomains has been set up and is not updated regularly. Lack of proper regular updates usually leads to vulnerable services. But how can we know that such subdomains exist? We can consider using multiple search engines to compile a list of publicly known subdomains. One search engine won't be enough. Moreover, we should expect to go through at least tens of results to find interesting data. After all, you are looking for subdomains that are not explicitly advertised, and hence it is not necessary to make it to the first page of search results. Another approach to discover such subdomains would be to rely on brute-forcing queries to find which subdomains have records. To avoid such a time-consuming search, one can use an online service that offers detailed answers to queries, such as DNS Dumpster. It opens in a new tab. If we search DNS Dumpster for tryhackme.com, we will discover the subdomain blog.tryhackme.com, which a typical DNS query cannot provide. In addition, DNS Dumpster will return the collected DNS information in easy-to-read tables and a graph. DNS Dumpster will also provide any collected information about listening servers. We will search for tryhackme.com on DNS Dumpster to give you a glimpse of the expected output. Among the results, we got a list of servers for the domain we are looking up. DNS Dumpster also resolved the domain names to IP addresses and even tried to geolocate them. We can also see the MX records. DNS Dumpster resolved all 5 mail exchange servers to their respective IP addresses and provided more information about the owner and location. Finally, we can see TXT records. Practically a single query was enough to retrieve all this information. DNS Dumpster will also represent the collected information graphically. DNS Dumpster displayed the data from the table earlier as a graph. You can see the and MX branching to their respective servers and also showing the IP addresses. There is currently a beta feature that allows you to export the graph as well. You can manipulate the graph and move blocks around if needed. Use the web browser on the attack box or your system to answer the following question. Look up tryhackme.com on DNS Dumpster. What is one interesting subdomain that you would discover in addition to www and blog? Passive. When you are tasked to run a penetration test against specific targets, as part of the passive reconnaissance phase, a service like Shodan.io opens in a new tab can be helpful to learn various pieces of information about the client's network without actively connecting to it. Furthermore, on the defensive side, you can use different services from Shodan.io to learn about connected and exposed devices belonging to your organization. Shodan.io tries to connect to every device reachable online to build a search engine of connected things in contrast with a search engine for web pages. Once it gets a response, it collects all the information related to the service and saves it in the database to make it searchable. Consider the saved record of one of tryhackme.com's servers. This record shows a web server. However, as mentioned already, Shodan.io collects information related to any device it can find connected online. Searching for tryhackme.com on Shodan.io will display at least the record shown in the screenshot above. Via this Shodan.io search result, we can learn several things related to our search, such as 1. IP address, 2. Hosting company, 3. Geographic location, 4. Server type and version. You may also try searching for the IP addresses you have obtained from lookups. These are, of course, more subject to change. On their help page, opens in a new tab. You can learn about all the search options available at Shodan.io, and you are encouraged to join TryHackme's Shodan.io. It would be best to visit Shodan.io to answer the following questions. However, note that you can find the answers on Shodan.io without needing a premium account. According to Shodan.io, what is the first country in the world in terms of the number of publicly accessible Apache servers? Based on Shodan. Passive. In this room, we focused on passive reconnaissance. In particular, we covered command line tools, WHOIS, nslookup, and dig. We also discussed two publicly available services: DNS dumpster. Opens in new tab. And IO. Opens in new tab. The power of such tools is that you can collect information about your targets without directly connecting to them. Moreover, the trove of information you may find using such tools can be massive once you master the search options and get used to reading the results. Purpose command line example. Look up WHOIS record WHOIS tryhackme.com. Look up DNS A records nslookup, type A tryhackme.com. Look up MX records at server nslookup, type MX tryhackme.com 1.1.1. Look up DNS TXT records nslookup, type TXT tryhackme.com. Look up A records dig tryhackme.a. Look up DNS at MX records at DNS server dig at 1.1.1.1. Whackme.com MX. Look up TXT records dig tryhackme.com TXT. Learn more about at in detail. Make sure you note all the points discussed in this room, especially the syntax for the command line tools.